580 KIDO presents
Good morning, Mr. Miller. I'm enjoying your show this morning very much. I appreciate it, sir.
your community voice. Kevin Miller.
You learn something new every day. I didn't even know there was 50 Shades of Grey. That's kind of, learn something new every day.
On Idaho's talk station, 580 KIDO.
580 KIDO, Kevin Miller with you here. Joining us now is the president of the Idaho Board of Education, Don Saltman. Mr. Saltman, good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Kevin.
Well, this is the time of year when we're looking for results and money on education. How are we doing as far as virtual schools and other schools, traditional and non-traditional in the state, sir?
Well, one of the topics, of course, started earlier in the month was, the graduation rate. And we have a new federal way, formula, if you will, of calculating that. And so when we saw the initial results, which they pegged Idaho at 77.3% for the class of 2014, which was, a significant reduction where we had been previously. So the board staff started doing some work digging into the numbers. And as we looked at those numbers, when we disaggregated them, we found that the alternative schools and the virtual schools in the state were dragging down our overall graduation rate. And so, the graduation rate for regular schools is considerably higher than the 77%. It's actually 88% and then 91% for those in charter schools. So, anyway, the fallout was that the alternative schools and the virtual schools have very low rates. But what this does is it gives us an opportunity now to focus some of our strategies on trying to help these lower graduating populations.
Well, and of course, that's always the main focus of education, how to improve it. Are you surprised that no matter what the board comes up with or local districts come up with, that education is always a point of contention and controversy?
Well, no. I served on a local school board for, 13, 14 years. And the thing about education is everybody's gone through it, and consequently everybody's an expert. And so we all know about this, and so there's not much that surprises me anymore.
Well, indeed, and when we take a look here at 580 KIDO, what do you foresee when we take a look at the budgeting for education this year? I know the state school superintendent has asked for an increase. The governor has looked at an increase. Will this be enough, in your opinion, to help these local districts that have the levies and everything else that we cover, it seems, on a daily basis here?
Well, one of the main things that came out of the governor's task force for improving education was that schools wanted to have their what they call discretionary funding, actually it's operational funding, restored back to the 2009 level. And with the governor's budget this year, we do that. And that is very positive. The initial timeline on that was supposed to take 5 years, and so we're into year 3 now, and we're going to do it. So very positive. That's, an additional $30 million. And then when you tie that with what we've been able to do on the career ladder, and hopefully will continue this year with another $40 million, it's a very positive year for education.
Anything else, sir, that you would like to share with our audience here at 580 KIDO this morning?
Nope. No, just, keep us in mind and think education. Go on.
Well, that's why we try to, twice a year we go to the schools to get the story. And, as you've said, it's always a point of conversation. And certainly everybody is very passionate about their kids and how they should be educated, and the idea of balancing the local needs with the state trying to produce as many qualified graduates to compete internationally is certainly a concern, and we appreciate your work, and thank you for that.
Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate it.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
All right, that is the president of the Idaho Board of Education, Don Saltman, joining us. Talk a little bit about schools and such, and we want to thank our friends at CapEd. Once again, we'll be going to the schools, looking forward to that, and looking forward to talking to the kids. It's interesting. we had a chance, if you get a chance, on our sister station, we carry the Idaho Stampede basketball. And I know what you're going to say, Kevin. You're not going to be one of these folks that goes into sports. I mean, for a town that has, well, we have some great minor league sports teams with the Stampede, the Steelheads, and others, and a great colleges here. No, we're not turning this into the sports station. I mean, there's 75 of them already. But what I've learned from doing a coach's show with the Stampede is just how young these guys are. And then when we go to the schools, it really is astonishing when you become involved. And it's really an evolution. And, you know, people become involved in things digitally. People become involved by going to things. And, you know, a gentleman that I admire, sometimes we agree, sometimes we don't disagree, but I admire his fortitude, and that's our friend Russ Smers, who was the gentleman that introduced us to Tea Party Bob. But Russ goes to a ton of meetings. He leaves his beautiful wife, Dorothy, and they go, and he goes to these meetings, and, you know, that's how you learn about things. And hopefully we'll have more of that. Look at our friend Greg Furch on the front page of the paper last week because he wanted to know how much the big nonprofit CEOs made, and he never could find that out. And we found out that Idaho state law, you don't have to disclose that. You know, and it's one thing to read things, and this is why the situation in Oregon is a little, not a little, but you read the online stuff, and we've reached out to Brandon Curtis several times, haven't heard from him. We would love to get him on, or anybody from the 3% Idaho, to find out just what happened. But this is what scares me about social media. And look, I'd be like everybody else if I wasn't, if I didn't go over there. Will Grigg went over there. We got his impressions yesterday. I was there. You know, everything is a tense situation. When you have folks with firearms, that elevates it. It's go time. But the allegations coming out through social media that Mr. Finnegan was killed by the authorities. You have other people saying that he drove away, got his truck stuck, charged out. As Liberal Steve said, we had a young lady email me today. There needs to be an investigation, whether it's a retired member of Congress, whether it's somebody else. You know, there needs to be an investigation. People don't trust the media. You know, that's why Donald Trump, in my opinion, is winning the war with Fox. I mean, when Fox News, our network, and look, it's better than anything else out there. At least we'll tell you what network we have. But when they want to give an illegal alien a question for the Republicans and the Republicans go along with it, you start to think, well, maybe Trump has a point. I mean, if you were an illegal alien in China, you'd be in prison or in Mexico. But, you know, you come back to this at 580-5436. There is an inherent distrust. But when you have the speculation that is going on rapidly online about the situation at the Malheur Wildlife Refuge, it's not doing the process any good. You know, it's kind of like the libs that lie about the Republicans. It becomes the narrative. And quite frankly, when people in law enforcement tell you to do something, you do it. Now Mr. Bundy has said it's time to stand down. So in the broader scheme of things, at 580-5436, we have one man dead, one man shot, several in prison. Was it worth it? What point was made? Number one. Number two, it's interesting when you go back to the witness that we've been playing the clip, Victoria Sharp, and they say, hey, we have women in the trucks. Now, you know, again, we're taught that men and women are equal. So what does that mean, that we have women in the trucks? Should they get special treatment? Let's hear more of her firsthand account.
So he gets out of the car, and then the guy tried to, talk to them. The driver was like, I'm just going to drive. So I'm just going to talk to the sheriff. And he's like, so either shoot me now or leave us alone. And they were just like, turn the car off and put your hands up on it. Oh, so finally, he decided to just drive. So we all got down on the floorboard, and he took off, and then they started firing at us. They started shooting us a bunch of times, and then they had a roadblock set up, and so he ran into a snowbank, and they were, riddling the car with bullets, And then when we crashed, they stopped for a second. He got out of the car, and he had his hands in the air. He's like, and rest. He's like, just shoot me then. This is what you want to shoot me. And they did. They shot him dead. They shot him like right there because he was just walking with his hands in the air, and I saw it. I swear to God, he was just walking with his hands in the air, and they shot him. And they shot him dead. And then after he was down on the ground, they shot him 3 more times. And then they bombarded our vehicle with bullets flying. Got hit in the shoulder. We were laying there on the floorboard screaming, and they gassed us like 5 times, and they kept trying to shoot us, and their angle was bad, so I don't know, we were praying like so hard, and we were screaming like, stop, please stop, please stop, and they were just drilling us with the bullets. They kept gassing us over and over,
and there we have it. That is from Victoria Sharp, her eyewitness account of what happened during the standoff at 580-5436. 580-KIDO. Here is another version from Facebook. Apparently now Facebook is the news source of choice from many folks. Let's take a listen to what this gentleman has to say. By the way, you're listening to Kevin Miller on Idaho's talk station, 580-KIDO. Still no word on what happens to Mr. Bundy. He did tell his followers to give up. They did. As we've reported, 5 or 8 people left. 3 were detained by authorities.
Of course, we happened to look over, and there was approximately 11 heavy-duty, 3/4-ton, 1-ton trucks sitting there, all winches and jacked up and, standard HRT trucks. And they whipped out, pulled us over, pulled me out of the Jeep first, being a driver, being as tall as I am and such. Being armed, yeah, they were a little rougher with me, but I would be too. Then they pulled Hammond out. They pulled Boot out. And then after they had us secured, they radioed ahead that vehicle 1 was secure. Go ahead and proceed with vehicle 2. At that time, we seen somebody come out of vehicle 2. Didn't know who it was on the passenger side, and they're about 200 yards up. They went to the ground. They were handcuffed. Next thing we know, the boy takes off. And from what Shauna Cox is saying, going off of what Shauna Cox and what Ryan Payne are saying, which were in the vehicle, visually, I seen the truck take off, And then from what Shauna Cox was saying, once they got down there by the roadblock, I don't know if he tried to go around the roadblock or what he did. But anyways, the nose of his truck got stuck in the, snowbank right there. From what Shauna Cox said, from she was inside of his truck again, that when he exited the vehicle, the rear wheels of the vehicle were still spinning, which diesel truck, manual transmission, makes sense. It's possible until it stalls. And he charged after law enforcement. From what Payne said, from what Shauna said, taking, pieces here, pieces there, and from what I witnessed. I didn't see the shooting. He was not on his knees. He was not none of that nonsense.
And there we have it, another man's account of what happened at the traffic stop in Oregon. Now you have a family that is hurt. That is Mark McConnell, by the way, posting that on Facebook. You have 2 different versions of what happened. And we had a young man by the name of Igor call in who essentially said, this is what happens when you break the law. I get that. I do. And Igor was pretty rough on me, and he should be. However, at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, the big issue here, my friends, is what's next. We had the standoff, people having the sign free land, which I think that was the straw that broke the camel's back, and now you have a family without a grandfather. For what? Did it send a message to President Obama? Your thoughts, your views next with me, Kevin Miller, on Idaho's talk station, 580-KIDO.
Hi, it's Glenn Beck. Join me today at 9. Now back to Kevin Miller on Idaho's talk station, 580-KIDO.
All right, quick break, reset. Kevin Miller in the morning, 580-KIDO, 28 in Meridian. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO. And we move along to Pastor Saeed. And this is, I think, a tough story for a lot of people here in the Treasure Valley. Pastor Saeed had a chance to speak with Greta Van Susteren. And, look, Greta Van Susteren is one of the most enterprising reporters around, certainly probably working her connections with Franklin Graham to make that happen. And I'm going to say something. And I'm going to stick up for the local media here. And obviously I have a vested interest in it. We have a vested interest in this. But, and we saw this with Boise State with Kyle Brotzman. And you see it a lot with colleges, and you see it a lot, I think, with politicians that like being on the big national shows. And they think being on the big national shows is really going to help them here locally. Look, our ratings, we beat any type of cable show on television. Being on cable is great. And I suppose it depends on what audience you want to reach. You know, we've reached out to Nagmaid Abedini, and we hope to get her on. I know she did the TV stations. And we'd like to hear from her. I would think that the issues that we did with, you know, keeping the story going and having her on, and I know it was tough for her, we'd just like to hear her reactions. You know, the details of their marriage, which I suppose is a story because it's on social media and people have to report it. For me, I don't know. I find it distressing. But after 3.5 years of being held against your will, people change. And you would have to think, and I'm not making excuses here, I'm just sharing my thoughts with you, and we'd love to have them at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. And you would think that being on the road all the time, raising awareness, praying every night for your husband's return, people would change as well. Is that a story worth covering? I don't know. The court filing, the comments on Facebook concerning Pastor Saeed. I know that there are good people like you here in the Treasure Valley that have been rooting for this young man. And we would never, ever seek to say anything bad about either one of them. And look, we've kind of evolved on this story. A lot of times when we first started, well, why did Pastor Saeed go over there? They told him not to go. Well, we learned from Nagmaid Abedini that wasn't the case. As in often the case with the Iranians, they lied. Here's a guy that said, I'm a Christian. I love Jesus Christ. And was tortured and beaten and still maintained his faith. Right? And now there are some personal issues. But speaking selfishly, as a person in the faith community, I wish that, I wish that he would speak with all of us. And I wish that Nagmaid would speak with all of us. Social media is great, but you control social media. Social media is what you want folks to read and hear. That's why Sarah Palin has Twitter and Facebook. She doesn't need the media. But I think here, it's a little different. And we're going to just say something nice about our news partner, Channel 7. It's not just covering a story, it's giving a rip. It's giving a rip about a mother in her mid-30s, a young man held against his will. And look, you want to talk to Greta Van Susteren, that's great, but then I think you should talk to Kevin Miller. Well, Greta's big, yeah, and if your audience is folks on the East Coast, great, but if your audience is people that were here and supported you, then you need to speak to me and our friends at Channel 7, and I'm sure they're diligently working on that as well. But here is Pastor Saeed talking about the dangers to Israel from the Iranians.
Today's International Holocaust Remembrance Day, and also the 71st anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz, the extermination camp in Poland, where more than 1.1 million Jews were murdered. Now, I'd love to think anti-Semitism is behind us, but it isn't. Christian pastor Saeed Abedini, just out of that Iranian prison, told me this about the Iranian government.
They have a really serious plan to destroy Israel. And I don't think that we can't accept that.
Why do they hate Israel so much?
There is two main reasons. The first reason is coming from Quran. There is so many verses in Quran that saying bad things about Jews. They call them, pig. They calls them dirty people, and people who deny God so many times, And the second thing, it's because they want to support Palestine and, Muslim countries. They think that Israel are, taking their land and they should give it back to the Palestinian. So because of these two reasons, I don't think that the hardliners over there, they never stop doing things that they are doing against Israel.
Terrible, isn't it? And today, though, as we remember the millions of victims of the Holocaust, we should also thank your father, your grandfather, your mother, your grandmother, that entire generation that fought so nobly in World War II. They saved us.
They did. Thank you, Greta. Traffic and weather together. Kevin Miller in the morning on Idaho's Talk. And we go to John. John, good morning. You're on 580 KIDO with Kevin Miller in the morning. Good morning,
Kevin.
sir.
Regarding the pastor, I understand he has issues with his wife. His wife has issues with him. But you know where your personal dirty laundry belongs? In the washing machine, not on the TV show. It's like, I've had issues in my marriage. I wouldn't get on TV and tell everybody, oh, she did this, I did that. Personal issues go beyond politics, and, I think that it's going over the limit when you do that kind of thing.
I would agree with you. Here's a statement. There's going to be some adjustments. Keep us in your prayers, and we're good to go.
Yeah. If there's been physical violence or actual abuse or something, then you call up your 911. You call the police, and they come and deal with it. But you don't go to TV and say, oh, this is what my husband did. This is what my wife did. It's nobody's business. Put it in the washing machine. It's dirty laundry. It's between you and him. That's my opinion.
Well, and before you go.
Okay.
I mean, the guy just got out of being tortured by the Iranians.
Right. Allegedly.
Allegedly?
Well.
You weren't there, and I weren't there. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. There's no proof yet.
Where'd you get your journalism degree from? You're more of a journalist than I am.
Okay, another one about that, about the thing in Burns.
Yes, sir.
The situation in Burns. Don't you think those federal officers have personal cameras on and dash cams?
Well, that is the.
So we've got records of what happened. They probably have the highest tech personal cams you can imagine.
I've heard that ABC News was there.
Yeah, I've seen some of the pictures. But everything is alleged until it goes to court, and it's innocent until proven guilty, right? Proven beyond reasonable doubt.
John, you're
Kevin,
on fire today, brother.
Kevin, you are becoming the Art Bell of the Treasure Valley. Your interviewing skills are so good, and you let people say what they want and speak their mind, and then occasionally you call them out and say, "Hey, you better watch your mouth. You're going to get yourself in trouble." Which is really good because people can get themselves in trouble with things. But
I don't want them to get me in trouble either.
No, you're doing a great job, Kevin. Keep it up.
God bless, John. Take care.
God bless you too, bro.
Bye-bye. All right, coming up next, remembering the Challenger tragedy. You're listening to Kevin Miller on Idaho's Talk Station, 580 KIDO. Good morning, Maggie.
Now back to Kevin Miller on Idaho's Talk Station, 580 KIDO.
580 KIDO. We go to Eben Brown with a memorable day in American history, the 30th anniversary of the Space Shuttle Challenger crash. Eben, good morning.
Good morning.
When we take a look at today, the meaning of it 30 years ago, Ronald Reagan, of course, I have the sound queued up here. Let me share this with everybody.
The crew of the Space Shuttle Challenger honored us for the manner in which they lived their lives. We will never forget them, nor the last time we saw them this morning, as they prepared for their journey and waved goodbye and slipped the surly bonds of earth to touch the face of God.
There we have it. Do we still feel the impact of that day today, sir?
Well, I think there are a lot of people who certainly do. When, especially if you were in school, I don't necessarily mean college. If you were in elementary school, if you were in what we probably called junior high back then, if you were in high school, you were likely very amped up to see this mission because of Krista McAuliffe, the school teacher from New Hampshire, who was selected to be the first ever non-NASA person, non-military person to go into space on the space shuttle, that she would be the first, what they called a space flight participant. She was the teacher in space. And kids around the country were really excited about this because they had seen her on television, and she was just this young but bright-eyed and engaging and very bright personality-wise type of person that every kid really just said, wow, I kind of wish she were my teacher. And even though she was a high school teacher, if you were young, as I was at the time, you would remember that feeling like you could sit on the rug and listen to her tell a story in kindergarten type of thing. She just had that type of effect on people who just even saw her on television. And so we were all gathered in our schools, in assembly or in our classrooms with televisions to watch the launch. This was supposed to be momentous, and then the most horrible thing happened. And our teachers, our parents really had to scramble to comfort us, to explain to us the best they could. And then we, that night was supposed to be a State of the Union address, but President Reagan obviously couldn't do that and decided to make some remarks from the Oval Office live on TV. And from those remarks, you just played the excerpt from, but there was another part of it where he asked to address the children in the room and tried to do his best explanation that I think any parent ever could in something like this. And he, speaking specifically to a child, he said the words, "Sometimes painful things happen." And I think that was really the most comforting thing we probably could have heard, that, we're not going to be able to explain this right away. We wouldn't be able to explain it on a scientific or technical level for months. And cosmically, we didn't know if we would ever really be able to explain it, certainly not to kids. But that sometimes painful things will happen. And, that's one of the things I remember most. And to this day, our space program has been, has really gone leaps and bounds beyond we ever thought it would. We have our space station. We're considering flights to an asteroid and Mars. We're cooperating with the Russians, where in 1986 they were not our enemy. They were not our friends, not on the ground and not really in space. And certainly now that is much different. But I could still remember watching Krista McAuliffe on television. She was 37 at the time. She would have been 67 now. And someone of that personality, with that presence, and certainly with that part of history, you have to wonder what she would have been capable of doing after that mission if she had lived, if that mission had been successful. Would she have stayed a humble school teacher in New Hampshire? Would she have sought higher office? Would she have become an advocate for education and space? Would she have become the U.S. Education Secretary? I mean, those are things that I think might have been within her reach later on in life had that mission been successful. And we probably missed out on a very interesting and positive person for our society.
And yet, Owen or Eben, I was thinking of the other folks. Just listening to you recalled, I can hear the emotion in your voice. Eben, when Columbia happened afterwards, certainly, again, another tragedy, and all of us that lived through Challenger said, oh, no, not again.
Well, certainly. And we do have to remember there was Challenger was 86, and Columbia was 2003. A lot of time had passed, really. And we were, again, perhaps thinking that, this is easy. We can do this. We don't, and we were back into the mode of really not paying attention to the danger and depth of space travel and how risky it really is. And that's why I think it shocked us again. But, I think Challenger's incident was really the first time we had a mass-mediated disaster that we were being made to watch, or at least being presented over and over again by means of videotape. Before that, I don't think we had something that went wrong that horribly on live television, and the broadcast technology existed where they could play the tape over and over and over again, and we would be watching it over and over and over again for hours. And then for the days after, and having it seared in our brain like that. I don't think we really did it again until 9/11. We certainly had disasters before Challenger, and many of them captured by journalists, as the Hindenburg was, many, many, many years before that. but we didn't have that on live television with the ability to play it over and over again and to contemplate the human loss and the absolute horror the way we did with Challenger. And I think that it changed us because of that.
Eben, thank you.
You got it.
All right, Eben Brown reporting. Kevin Miller in the morning. As we move along here at 580 KIDO, let's go to Brandon Curtis with 3% Idaho. Brandon, good morning.
Good morning, Kevin. How are you?
Well, we're fine. We were worried about you. I know you've been very busy, certainly with the developments in Oregon. Unfiltered, no leading questions here. What do you know, and what happened?
Well, I'm sure as everyone's heard, there was a shooting here night before last. They took Ammon Bundy and several of the people that were at the refuge into custody. They tried to do that. Well, they did that through initiating a traffic stop on two vehicles. The vehicles were headed from Burns, Oregon to John Day, Oregon for a ranchers meeting. They waited for the vehicles to get up into the canyon between the two counties in a remote location. There are no communications or cell phone service up in that area. They initiated the traffic stop. One vehicle stopped, and all the occupants, including Ammon Bundy and a couple others, were taken into custody without incident. The second vehicle, which Lavoy Finicum was driving, just kept heading up the road, ended up about a mile further up the road where they had a roadblock in place. And a lot of the details of how it happened or how it transpired. There's a lot of information floating around out there. I actually do have an eyewitness account that was in that vehicle that we'll be releasing a full statement and interview with her later this afternoon. But the gist of that is Lavoy Finicum next to the vehicles, his hands were up in the air. He was saying, I'm unarmed, don't shoot me. But if you feel like you need to shoot me. But he was standing there with his arms up. The FBI was getting commands to go towards the back of the vehicle, which he was doing. And at some point in that, when he got to the back of the vehicle, Lavoy Finicum was shot fatally.
You know Lavoy, you know Ammon, you've been there, you've sacrificed, your group has. How are you reacting to this personally?
Lavoy was a good friend. We're all pretty devastated and pretty upset. We were here in a security buffer and trying to do everything we could to keep those guys safe. We've taken a lot of hits, a lot of criticism for the events that transpired, and unfortunately, we didn't know those guys were on the road. We didn't know they had planned to go that route. There was a failure in communication with their security team up there at the refuge and our security team here in Burns. Otherwise we would have had a much larger convoy there. We're all devastated by Lavoy's loss. It was a death that didn't need to happen. We feel the FBI could have certainly acted without such an aggression and such force. There was 5 people in that vehicle. They had dozens of FBI agents there and local law enforcement, Oregon State Police. There certainly could have been a better ending to that. I felt off the eyewitness accounts that I spoke directly to those witnesses. I feel the FBI engaged in an offensive manner, which was completely uncalled for.
Brandon Curtis joining us, 3% Idaho, Kevin Miller in the morning. So you are there right now?
Yes, we're here right now.
What's the mood on the ground in the city?
The community is outraged. The community is very upset and outraged. There's a lot of distrust with law enforcement now, the FBI. It's really unfortunate that the FBI had to take such drastic, aggressive measures to make a point, in my opinion, because now this community is really, they just want the FBI out of this town. They don't want them here anymore. There was a candlelight vigil for Lavoy here in town last night. Hundreds of people came to that. And not one representative came to that from the law enforcement community.
I didn't hear anything about that.
We weren't aware of it either. It just happened. So it happened. They gathered in our hotel parking lot here, and it was the community planned that. It must have been a last minute planning. It was very nice. They had a big turnout. But again, not one law enforcement representative showed up for that.
What do you hear from Ammon? What do you hear about Ryan's health?
Ryan Bundy.
Yeah.
Who you're referring to? Yeah, he took a round into the shoulder. I hear he's fine. They treated and released him. It was just grazed. And that's my understanding. He took that round while he was in the vehicle. So there's some speculation that, some eyewitness accounts as well that the law enforcement fired many rounds into the vehicle itself after shooting Lavoie. Ryan Bundy did in fact take a round into the shoulder. He was treated and released at the local hospital here. And Ammon, as far as I speak to his wife, she keeps me posted. He's still in good spirits. He's still things and continue doing what he does and making sure that the ranchers here have their freedom and he'll still continue to fight that fight.
Well, indeed, of course, coming from his attorney, telling folks it's time to stand down, and some folks left, and apparently the refuge is abandoned now. That's what we're hearing. Brandon, you're there right now, spending your own money. Has this whole thing been worth it?
Yes, it has been worth it. We're still here. We'll continue to be here during the course of all of us being here and Ammon getting the message out that he got out. It certainly wasn't done in vain. There was a lot of corruption exposed in the county level, and we're still going to continue to work on that. We are not going to back down, and I understand there's a lot of people that are upset. There's a lot of people pointing fingers as far as should we be here, should we not be here. The community still is welcoming us. The community is afraid now of the FBI. They feel that someone lost their life unjustly. A lot of lies are being told by law enforcement after press releases that we can, prove to be untrue. So we're going to continue to do what we do. Every bit of it was worth it, and we're going to continue to be here to do what we need to do to finish our mission at hand.
Well, what is next?
Well, we're going to continue to work on exposing the corruption. We have had a lot of people step forward in the last couple of days to discuss that. We're also here. The community has come to us. They're afraid that what they're seeing and how the federal government and the FBI as this is unfolding with them in their local community with the loss of a life and some of the other lives that are being told. They're concerned. So they've asked us to make sure that we stay here. We become a trusted support system here. So we're going to continue to do that, and we'll continue to be here at the request of the community and serve them as they ask. We are also, we're asking for more people to come to Burns, more patriots, more people. The community wants the FBI out of here, and they want them out of here immediately, and we're going to assist them in making that voice heard.
What's next for the sheriff?
The sheriff has still been quiet. He definitely supports the actions of the FBI. He supports everything that's it's gone on so far on the law enforcement side, which is really unfortunate. The sheriff had a chance to really stand up and be a constitutional man. He had a chance to stand up and really be the hero in this community. And he turned his back on this community. He's lied to this community, and he's allowed the federal agencies to come in and control him. And I think the sheriff, in my opinion, at election time, it will be done here.
When we take a look here at 580 KIDO, Brandon, about just going back to this, you're there right now. Again, could this have been avoided? And I know you've answered that already, but it's just so emotional. You and I had talked about your experience there. Hopefully that things wouldn't have escalated. I think everyone wishes that somebody could have jumped in and de-escalated the situation. I know you and 3% Idaho tried to do that. Again, from your firsthand accounts, what do you think?
Yeah, it could have absolutely been avoided. And what, all the critics out there that are sitting there, behind their computer screens and wanting to send us the nasty messages and lay the blame. People need to understand that if we could have been there, had we known that they were going to be there, we would have been there, and we would have been there in full force. And Lavoie Finnecum was my friend, and he was a good friend, and he was a good man. And before you lay judgment, people need to understand that. And somebody died. And had we been able to be there, we would have been there. The FBI ambushed those poor people. It was a setup, and I believe they did it purposely to distance them from us and any security detail that could have been in place for them. You know, Lavoie died protecting this country. He died he was a very convicted man, and he died protecting the people of this county, and people need to understand that.
And you're saying this is even more remote than the wildlife refuge where this happened?
Very much more so. It's in a canyon. It was 10 miles from the county line, so it was, you know, approximately maybe 10 miles out of town into a canyon. It's a narrow canyon. They were boxed in. There was a roadblock there. They didn't leave them out. You know, the eyewitness accounts say that there was people in the sniper's position up on the hill on both sides of the vehicle where they came into the roadblock. You know, when we have more of those details, we're going to release it. But when those details come out and that video comes out of the eyewitness accounts that we're working on now, it's just going to make people sick when they hear how that went down and how that transpired. And it could have been avoided. 100% could have been avoided. You have 40 law enforcement officials, 5 people in the vehicle who were unarmed, by the way. It's been the eyewitness accounts, unarmed. Lavoie Finnegan's hands are up in the air. There's no reason that should have went to gunfire. There's no reason that it should have escalated that quickly.
Brandon, we appreciate it. Can you hang on the line for a minute?
You bet.
All right. More coming up with Brandon Curtis, live from Burns, Oregon. You're listening to Kevin Miller on Idaho's talk station, 580 KIDO.
Hello. Glenn Beck is next. Now, back to Kevin Miller on Idaho's talk station, 580 KIDO.
Now, Liberty Linda, I got to run because I got to get to traffic, but do you have anything for 10 seconds?
No, I can call tomorrow and share this with you. And great show today, Kevin, as usual.
God bless.
Thank you.
Thank you. Quickly to traffic.